Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1, Text 13. Tapasa Brahmacharjena Shamena Cha Damena Ta Chagena Sacha Sochabhyam Yamena Niyamena Va Sa, by austerity or voluntary rejection of material enjoyment. Brahmacharjena, by celibacy, the first austerity. Shamena, by controlling the mind. Cha, and Damena, by fully controlling the senses. Cha, also. Tyagena, by voluntarily giving charity to good causes. Satya, by truthfulness. Sochabhyam, and by following regulative principles to keep oneself internally and externally clean. Yamena, by avoiding cursing and violence. Niyamena, by regularly chanting the holy name of the Lord. Va, and. Translation: to concentrate the mind, one must observe a life of celibacy and not fall down. One must undergo the austerity of voluntarily giving up sense enjoyment. One must then control the mind and senses, give charity, be truthful, clean, and non-violent, follow the regulative principles, and regularly chant the holy name of the Lord. Thus a sober and faithful person who knows the religious principles is temporarily purified of all sins performed with his body, mind, and word. These sins are like the dried leaves of creepers beneath a bamboo tree, which may be burned by fire, although their roots remain to grow again at the first opportunity. Purport. Tapa is explained in the Smriti Shastra as follows. Manasash chandriyanam cha aikagyam paramam tapa. Complete control of the mind and senses and their complete concentration on one kind of activity is called tapa. Our Krishna consciousness movement is teaching people how to concentrate the mind on devotional service. This is first class tapa. Brahmacharya, the life of celibacy, has 8 aspects. One should not think of women, speak about sex life, dally with women, look lustfully at women, talk intimately with women, or decide to engage in sexual intercourse. Nor should one endeavor for sex life or engage in sex life. One should not even think of women or look at them, to say nothing of talking with them. This is called first-class brahmacharya. If a brahmachari or sannyasi talks with a woman in a secluded place, naturally there will be the possibility of sex life without anyone's knowledge. Therefore, a complete brahmachari practices just the opposite. If one is a perfect brahmachari, he can very easily control the mind and senses, give charity, speak truthfully, and so forth. To begin, however, one must control the tongue in the process of eating. In the Bhakti Marga, the path of devotional service, one must strictly follow the regulative principles by first controlling the tongue. Sevan mukehi jivadau swayameva spurachada. The tongue, jiva, can be controlled if one chants the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, does not speak of any subjects other than those concerning Krishna, and does not taste anything not offered to Krishna. If one can control the tongue in this way, brahmacharya and other purifying processes will automatically follow. It will be explained in the next verse that the path of devotional service is completely perfect, and is therefore superior to the path of fruitive activities and the path of knowledge. Quoting from the Vedas, Srila Viragavacharya explains that austerity involves observing fast as fully as possible. Tapasana shakhena. Srila Rupa Goswami has also advised that achahara, too much eating, is an impediment to advancement in spiritual life. Also in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yuktahara viharasya yukta chetasya karmasu yukta swapnavabodasya yoga bhavati dukada. He who is temperate and his habits of eating, sleeping, working, and recreation can mitigate all material pain by practicing the yoga system. In text 14, the word dhira, meaning those who are undisturbed under all circumstances, is very significant. Krishna tells Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, Matra sparsha sukhanteya satoshna sukatukada agamapaino nitya tam satikshava. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their appearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. In material life there are many disturbances, ajatmika, adidaivika, and adibhautika. One who has learned to tolerate these disturbances under all circumstances is called dhira. Tapasa brahmacharyena Shamena cha damena cha tyagena satyashochabhyam yamena niyamena va dehavag buddhijam dhira dharmagya shadayanvita Shipyantyagam maharapi venugulmam ivanala. To concentrate the mind, one must observe a life of celibacy and not fall down. One must undergo the austerity of voluntarily giving up sense enjoyment. One must then control the mind and senses, give charity, be truthful, clean, and non-violent, follow the regulative principles, and regularly chant the holy name of the Lord. Thus a sober and faithful person who knows the religious principles is temporarily purified of all sins performed with his body, mind, and words. These sins are like the dried leaves of creepers beneath a bamboo tree, which may be burned by fire, although their roots remain to grow again at the first opportunity. So, this verse expresses the qualifications of actual advancement under the principles of tapasya. But the next verse, text 13, explains like that. And text 14 explains that this is not sufficient. A little bit only. This is not sufficient because although one may be engaged in all kinds of austerities, penances, charities, etc., as explained in that verse 13, these activities are like burning the weeds which are growing above the ground. You may burn the dry leaves of the creepers of the bamboo tree. That's exactly. The bamboo tree, like the sugar cane, for instance, or other forms of bamboo, they have the sticks and then there's little leaves, dried leaves. They're like weeds. They just grow up here, there, and everywhere. But actually they're part of the same plant. So when the bamboo is mature, these leaves become dry. That's the upper portion of the plant. So if you burn them all, which they do, when they want to take very nicely all of the bamboos or the canes, they first just burn away all of the dry leaves because they're like bushes of dry leaves. So that goes very fast. It takes like 10 seconds and all of the leaves are burned. And the bamboo is not touched because it was so fast and that was very green. The stalks are green. So there's no effect practically on the bamboos. So quickly you burn up all the plants that are just dried up, and then one chops down the bamboos very nicely and does whatever he wants with them. So now one may think that now I have chopped the bamboo and I have burned the leaves, so everything is gone. But it's not so, because the root of the plant is still there under the ground. The root of the plant is still there. So what will happen is that the plant itself will come back again as soon as it rains. In fact, when you burn, that does not finish off the plant at all. In fact, it makes nice fertilization for the ground. This is not, of course, a very good way of making fertilization. There are much better ways. So not that our farmers shouldn't understand this. But if you think that's a way to get rid of the plant, you're wrong. Because when it rains, then the mixture of the water and the carbon and the earth makes it nice so that it can grow again very wonderfully. Therefore, where there was cane, there tends to be cane again after the harvest. So, the point that is made here is that the sinful activity which one has within his heart, or the sinful desire which one has in his heart, are the root or the root causes of all of the disturbing sinful activities. And if one just simply performs some kind of austerities, penances, or other things like this, but doesn't attack the root of the problem, then the sinful desires within the heart will again come out and will cause one to fall down into the material nature. So, Shukadeva Goswami speaks about this to Maharaj Parikshit. He's giving an understanding of what is good for controlling the mind, what is good for controlling the senses, what is good for advancement. Tapasa brahmacharjena yamena chanamena chatyagena satasuttabhyam yamena nimena va. This tapasa brahmacharjena, samena and damena, these are the basic principles. Tapasya. Tapasya is the general principle. Brahmachari. Brahmacharya means abstinence from all forms of sex life. Then samena and damena. These things follow automatically. Control of the mind, control of the senses. When the basic principle is followed, then the other principles follow automatically. In fact, if one just knows how to control his tongue, then he's got a 90% chance of controlling everything else, just by doing that. And of course, being truthful, being clean, and not being angry towards others, or cursing others, or being violent, and following the regulative principles of devotion. All right, these things are all very good. But they are not the real solution. These are servants of the real solution. The real solution is that one has to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, sometimes we think we can turn the surrendering process into a formula. If I do like this, if I do like that, then I will surrender. If I just simply follow all of these rules, then I will be pure. But it's not like that. We have heard so many times about how if somebody just simply follows everything very properly, then he will become purified. But we have seen even those who follow everything very properly not be purified. Now that does not mean you should not follow everything very properly. Not at all. Because if you don't follow everything very properly, then there's no question of surrendering. But even if you do follow everything very properly, that is still not sufficient to make you a surrendered soul, to make you pure. It simply gives you the best chance by which you can become purified. It is the best chance. It means gives you the best shot at it. It is not that. It is something that must come automatically. If I just follow, even though my mind is spinning off in different directions, and even though I don't have my heart in it, and even though I can't really serve very nicely because I don't really want to, I'll still become purified. It just simply doesn't work like that. The real point of purification, which brings peace of mind and satisfaction, is that one surrenders his heart and his whole soul and whole existence under the lotus feet of Krishna. And let Krishna run his life. Krishna is the master, we are his slave. This means surrender. And that brings purification. Real purification, because that's the heart. I suppose somebody will say, yes, but to get to that point, you have to be so much purified. Yes, but how do you become so much purified? Then they will say, through this formula, that formula. No. It's by actually surrendering your heart. And how to do that? By desire. Because heart means soul, soul means it's under your control, it's your desire. So if one desires to do so, then he will actually surrender himself to Krishna. And at that point, he will become very much purified. So the whole question is a question of surrendering the heart. And that's not easy, because we are misers who like to keep our hearts hidden away, covered over, blocked off, so that nothing but nothing can ever reach there. Okay, that may be great in the material world, and necessary too. Because nobody cares about anybody in this world, and people would as soon slice you to pieces as smile at you. Okay, so better one protects himself. All right, we accept that. However, there is an extreme which becomes counterproductive. And that extreme is when it applies in relationship with Krishna or Krishna's devotees. Even a pure devotee will think, yes, if you require to slice me to pieces for your happiness, go right ahead. If that's what you require in order to get it out of your system so you could maybe chance go back to Godhead, go right ahead. But, in fact, one should not take the extreme of thinking, no, I won't even let Krishna in my heart. Now with Krishna, he's already there. There's no question of not letting him in. Yeah. He's already there. You can make all the doors and the obstacles and then whatever you like to keep Krishna out, but he's standing right next to you, telling you how to make the doors better. He's already there in the heart. You cannot keep him out. There's no question of it. He's there. And in fact, he throws you out at the end of the life. And then he goes with you to wherever you go. And then you go into a new body and then build big walls and doors and cement blocks and bang up everything just to keep Krishna out. And he's standing right next to you. Isn't it absurd? Certainly. There's no doubt about it. But we have to understand, Krishna, he's in our heart and he's also in our temple. Yeah. He's also manifesting as his literature. Krishna's there everywhere. He's in every atom. He's in the universe, half the universe. And he's beyond it. He's the source of the universe. Everywhere, everything is Krishna. So how can we avoid him? You cannot. But the only way to avoid him is the monkey philosophy. I don't see anything, therefore I don't see Krishna. Monkey philosophy. This is the philosophy of monkeys. How to become ignorant? Well, just refuse to see, that's all. No more vision. Krishna is not there. Why? Because I don't see him. Oh. I suppose it's like the famous example of the ostrich putting his head in the sand. Or the rabbit who, when the ferocious wolf comes, they just close their eyes and freeze as if they're going to start looking like some grass. And the wolf won't see him. He'll think, oh, there's a weed over there with ears. The rabbit may do like that, but it does not mean he becomes safe. Similarly, we may try to avoid Krishna, close our eyes. He's not there. But he is there. And we know it. Every devotee knows it. Even if you're not even a good devotee. Even if you're a bad devotee. You know Krishna's in your heart. You can't be a devotee unless you know Krishna's in the heart. Yeah. You know it. But you reject it if you're a nonsense. You say, no, Krishna may be in my heart usually, but today he's not in my heart because I want to do some sinful activity. He's not in my heart for the next 30 minutes. Boy, are we nonsense. Krishna is in our heart all the time, and Krishna knows what's going on all the time. So, it is a question of surrendering. One has to actually surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord all the time. That's real surrender. Not just sometimes. Part-time surrender. Like you have a job. You part-time surrender to your boss, and then you go home, and you're part-time the boss at home. Not even that. So part-time we're surrendered to Krishna, and part-time we're nonsense. This is not very good. One must learn the art of being full-time Krishna's servant, not part-time. Full-time working for the satisfaction of the Lord, full-time surrendered unto His lotus feet. Full-time. So one may say, but this is very difficult. So then what do? So we start praying. Do not underestimate the power of prayer. Of course, if you pray to Krishna like this, my dear Krishna, I'm a nonsense, there's no doubt about it. So you, against my will, make me purified, although I don't want to. So, do you think you're going to get any response? Of course not. Krishna is not going to fulfill that prayer. I don't want to be purified, but make me purified anyway. What is this nonsense? I don't want any money, but give me money. I don't want anything to eat, but give me lunch. Huh? One wonders what he's talking to here. It must be a madman. So when we say, I don't want to be purified, there's no way I want to surrender, but make me surrender unto you anyway. In other words, what we're saying to Krishna is, force me or force my desire to change against my will. That's something Krishna will not do. He will not interfere with our desire. He will not interfere. It is up to us to change our desire. Krishna will not. But Krishna will help us to desire if we ask Him to. Krishna will help us to become purified if we ask Him to. Even if we're the most nonsense of the nonsenses, if we try to surrender by coming to Krishna and say, I know I'm a nonsense. I'm sick of being a nonsense. I really want to stop being a nonsense. Please help me in this desire. Then Krishna will help you little by little. The first thing is to get some good engagement in devotional service. One has to always be engaged, full-time, not part-time. Because part-time means so much for Krishna, so much for me. So much for Krishna, so much for me. Yeah. And then gradually he starts thinking, why so much for Krishna? Much less for Krishna, much more for me. And then finally he thinks, everything for me, who needs Krishna? This is the way of the material world. Lust develops and one starts thinking more and more. Therefore, one has to start off with the mentality, everything for Krishna. I'll take whatever He gives me. Everything for the Lord's satisfaction. That's useful. Because then, what you need, Krishna gives. So it is a question of surrender. And it's not that difficult, neither is it something easy. It's requiring endeavor, but the endeavor comes from within the heart, by desire. And one should pray to the Supreme, who is so kindly and mercifully just staying here before us so that we may surrender unto Him. One should pray to the Supreme and beg Him to help us, because He knows us better than anybody. And He also knows how to arrange everything so that we'll gradually surrender. Sometimes Krishna arranges circumstances so that we suffer terribly and come through that suffering condition with a lot of knowledge. Or otherwise, Krishna will cause things to happen which may not seem from external point of view to be so bad, but internally they're causing us great trouble and causing us to learn. Krishna is a great teacher. He knows how to make us learn. He knows how to force us to learn. And in this way, we can gradually advance. Advancement is required. We should learn the art of advancing. And that is the whole point of Krishna consciousness. To learn the art of making spiritual advancement. And that is done by surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Lord very nicely. So Krishna is there. He wants to help us. But we have to want Him to help us. Then it will be a very nice reciprocation. He wants to help, and we have to want Him to help us. And then in this way, by our desire, we will pray to Krishna, I want you to help me. Please help me more and more to become your pure devotee. And then everything will work out. So, that is the real secret. That is the secret behind actual purification. The secret is to come to the point of actually desiring Krishna full time. And although tapasya in various forms is good, and it is helpful, it is not really the solution. Prabhupada once even said that some of his godbrothers had been engaging in severe and horrifying austerity. Some were doing really terrifying austerity. One had even put himself in a pit for months on end. Yet, Prabhupada said, I didn't like austerity so much. The point was, he was fully surrendered to Krishna. That was the point. And even though one may engage in so many austerities, he may not be fully surrendered. That is the problem. Therefore, we have to learn the art of surrender. Because it's impossible to teach us the art of austerity. Can you imagine trying to teach austerities in Scandinavia? You even start off with the first word and everybody freaks out completely. Tapasa brahmacharjena. Ah! And they run out the door. In Denmark, I think it was last Sunday, I made the mistake of actually answering somebody's question. I don't remember exactly what it was. Somebody asked the question something. Of course it had something to do with sex life, right? So I said, oh, I know you're not going to like this answer. But I have to tell you anyway since you asked. So then I told, and then immediately nobody liked the answer. And I didn't even get heavy, it was just a little bit of an answer. 2 sentences, 3 sentences. Immediately the objections started coming. But, tapasa, brahmacharjena, let me out of here. So this is the problem. People are so attached nowadays, there's no question of even speaking about austerity. Therefore we have to go about it in another way. Not the direct method. Formerly you could go through the direct method. Now it's not possible. Now you have to do a little bit indirect, which is, alright, so you engage yourself fully in Krishna's service. So you get yourself work and keep yourself busy all the time. And after a long time, then you'll figure out that there's something good about this tapasya. And you'll want to do it more and more in order to become more powerful, in order to perform your service nicer for the satisfaction of Krishna. So this way, one gradually surrenders, maybe when he's 60 or 70 or 80 and he's useless. He can't enjoy the sex life anymore. Yeah. But of course the problem is how many are so lucky as to make it to such an age in devotional service. Because of this inability to accept the basic principles. Therefore Prabhupada said when he first came to the West, he thought that as soon as he mentioned the 4 regulative principles, they would tell him, all right, Swamiji, thank you very much, now you can go home. Of course, there was great fortune there, inasmuch as that this was the era of the greatest permissiveness that had ever been known in history. And already, young people were already burned out. Therefore, he had a good audience. Because being already burned out, they weren't interested in these things anymore. Not that they had any great qualities of austerity. It was simply just the burnout. So much burned out, they couldn't think of enjoying the 4 regulative principles, 4 unregulated principles anymore. But then the problem is when you abstain for a while, then gradually the taste may come back. When one finishes with his cycle of being burned out, the taste comes back, then one's tested. When the senses become powerful again, then one's tested. It's easy to avoid sex life when the senses are not interested. But as soon as the senses become in, then the test comes. How sincere are you? Do you really want to serve Krishna or not? That's the question. And going on serving Krishna is a very important thing because there is nothing else of any value. This is called an understatement. So therefore, one should engage himself always in Krishna's service with great love and devotion, trying to practice as much as possible all of the principles. In any case, just go on serving Krishna. That's not a license, because every time one breaks a principle, it becomes 10 times harder to serve and surrender to Krishna. But we're saying, just go on serving Krishna under any circumstances. And don't give up that service to Krishna. Then there's all possibility of going back home, back to Godhead someday. So there's hope. That's the point. There's hope. So just go on, and there'll be hope. All right, Harikesa.